I won't give up till I'm on top.
Yo, no, I ain't the type to give up. If I do something, man, I do it till I get what I want. I turn a business out of nothing into something I love. I got a poker face, but honestly, I'm not one to bluff. I flip a switch, never miss, man, I always stay up. Don't let them see you, bitch, always have a plan to stay tough. This life ahead of you ain't easy, it was built to be rough. But that's what makes a personality, is tragedy, bruh. So keep your head on your shoulders. Now we ain't out here moving rocks, we out here moving boulders. Now we ain't getting posterized, we out here making posters. And we ain't got nothing to hide, we move forward like soldiers.
That's right, it's Pregaming here on the Sports Money Network, TGIF. We've made it, double F. The one F is for Friday, the other one is for you know what. And we are going to do it here tonight, you guys. I hope you're ready. This is a special pre-gaming edition here. It's the NBA playoff preview show, and I get none other than my friend to bring in here, NBA basketball insider looking to fire. We're not going to do it old school way, though. We're going to talk to you guys about some trends, some patterns. Yeah, we're going to talk about some leans on the games and some thoughts and things to look out for, but I think you guys will enjoy not just a one-at-a-time breakdown. The old hats are telling you, bounce back, revenge. Well, that's going to be every single game in the NBA playoffs. So we're going to try to find a different way to go after that bag. So stay tuned and get ready. We're going to have a quick show tonight. We're not going to be here for a long time, but it is going to be a good time. And it was a good time last night. You guys know we start off every show, we recap. We'll be really quick here. And what can you say? We won everything. The only spot we didn't cash was the Nashville Predators. And they lost 5-4. Man, it was a heartbreaker, too, because there was a goal scored on them with, I think it was 1:08 left. There's a back-and-forth gun battle. Anaheim wouldn't die. They wouldn't quit. And it just turned out to be too much for Nashville to prevail at the end of the season. So that's how that game went. But literally, Guardians first 5. St. Louis Blues, Colorado Rockies, San Diego Padres, Calgary Flames, the under 6 in the Flames game, the Edmonton Oilers -1.5. I heard some joker today, and this is what motivates me. We'll find out if this kind of stuff motivates our guest or not as well, but he was all excited. He was like, I gave you the Edmonton Oilers in regulation. It was -190. Dude, that's the kind of thing you text your buddies and you're like, hey man, listen, if you want to throw a couple dollars on this, here's, you don't go on a fucking show and give that out to everybody and their brother and then have the gall to come back the next day and be like, dude, we killed it. Bro, you almost fucked everybody's bankroll. Now it turns out we had Edmonton -1.5 at just over a -125. Also told you guys to play the Colorado Avalanche parlayed at -1.5 with the Edmonton Oilers -1.5. That cash, that's the way we do it. They do it in an embarrassing manner and then come back and celebrate and take their victory laps. We do it as humble warriors. We continue to fight the battle. And I'm looking at battle tonight, you guys. We're going to go NBA playoffs. We're going to talk to sharp respected betting. I might give you guys a little caveat here at the end of the show with a couple of NHL spots. It's the big card, starts tomorrow, but this show is fully featured on the NBA. And let's bring in none other than NBA insider, my friend, co-host of Bases Loaded. It's the Shark. What's up, brother?
What's going on, Mike? How you feeling? It's the evening time now. I was just saying I got a little sun. It's a nice relaxing afternoon. We're not all worked up about baseball. We get to talk some basketball. What's going on?
Man, oh man, we are here, bro. We're not confined to 15-game MLB card that we need to knock out in 50 minutes. So you and I talked about this, maybe 2 weeks ago, through just a different way to analyze playoff basketball. And dude, I was digging it so much that I was like, we got to get you in here and just share some wisdom. They get upset when we educate, but it's all about developing. They being the other shops, because they say, well, if you give them the secret formula, they don't need you. And I think if we all work together to beat these bookies, we'll continue to find spots. And even if somebody misses one, somebody else will be able to come in and pick up the bag and share with everybody else. So this is all about development today, Shark, but I'm fired up. How you feeling about the NBA playoffs? You getting ready? You getting set? We already had a couple playing games.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, this is what people wait for all year, if we're being honest. I mean, you think about the complaining of the regular season. It's too long. The players sit out. People buy tickets, expensive tickets, and they go to the arena and LeBron's out or Steph's out. I mean, this is what people wait for all year. And you talk about casuals versus pros. I mean, we're pros, but this is where the casuals live. And, we're all casuals at heart. We all were kids once, and we like to watch playoff basketball. It's the best time of the year for basketball. I couldn't be more excited. And our guy in the chat says, we need those crisp hat plays. I got a couple hats here. I might have to actually go get one in the other room at some point during this little show here. But we got some hats, Mike. I am fired up, though. I will say this. I mean, the NBA playoffs are a long time. It's 2 months. The finals game 7 is not scheduled until like June 20th. So, I mean, we're really strapping in here for a long haul. And I think that's part of the reason why they actually want to reduce the regular season, because if you actually go to the finals, it feels like you're playing basketball for about 9 months of the season, plus the media tour in the summer. So I get the idea, 65 games, this, and that. But I am absolutely fired up.
Yeah, we talked about that many a times. I mean, look, we just saw, it doesn't matter what the sport, well, to some degree, right? I mean, look, even the Kansas City Chiefs, Florida, I'll go down the list, Tampa Bay Lightning, Florida Panthers, Boston Bruins, New England Patriots, Golden State Warriors. These are the list of teams that make it 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row, 5 seasons in a row. Shit, even when LeBron versus Steph was a thing when he was in Cleveland, these teams go so far, and to your point, their off season has become so shrunken down that at some point the trek, the tread wears off the tires. And I think that's what we saw with the Florida Panthers this year. You just can't continue to go deep, go into June, have a 2-month off season and be expected to come back and fire the following year. At some point it catches up to you. And, speaking of Steph Curry and Golden State, man, I mean, listen, them boys are back. They kind of were dragging ass all year. They were hurting. We'll try to give a little insight there, but let's kick this thing off. Let's talk not so much about games yet. We'll talk a couple of spots here for you guys, but let's just talk about philosophy and strategy. There's a couple of things that you really kind of had me sharpening my pencil on when it came to things to look for in the NBA playoffs. And I preface it by saying, every team's going to lose a game at not necessarily every team going to lose a game, but let's just say hypothetically, if they lose a game in a series, it's a bounce back, immediate revenge spot. So we have to have something more than just looking to zigzag, because not every game goes 7 games. Not every series goes deep. So you had mentioned a couple things, specifically home teams, and there's a spot where we talked about kind of backing up the truck and firing. Can you just kind of share with us a little of the insight, some of the spots that you look for over the course of a winner best of 7 series?
Yeah. There's at least 3 or 4. I would say one of the things that I've learned over the years is that game 1 and game 7 are the 2 toughest games to handicap. Game 1, you got full rest for both teams, kind of a feeling out game. It's a little loose. And game 7, you have the last day on earth dynamic where you get the absolute best ever from both teams. It's games 2 through 6 where you get a lot of bounce back and a lot of zigzag, and you get a lot of travel. So this whole idea starts in game 2. And it's very predicated on the home team losing game 1, where then you get a significant motivational edge for the home team not to lose both home games and then go on the road and presumably just lose the series. So that's where you get that spot where that home team in that environment really has a game 7 for them. And the road team is flat because they've stolen home court advantage away. So they have a totally lesser energy. And that's kind of the idea in the zigzag of the series, of the 7-game series here, is to find just the games where one team is so much more in need of the game than the other team. So the first one, absolutely, this weekend, it will be Monday or Tuesday. Of course, the Saturday teams are playing on Monday, Sunday on Tuesday. Monday and Tuesday night, we're going to see, do any of the home teams lose game 1? And if so, we're going to be absolutely pouncing on those spots.
I love it. That just makes a ton of sense. The pressure's high. The hands get a little more sweaty. Everyone needs these games. And how do you feel about the idea of the gentleman's sweep? Do you subscribe at all to that theory where it's like a team so dominant, but there's that kind of zigzag where they're going to give up one of those games to the other team?
Yeah, I think it's very centered on what teams are involved, if we're being honest. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's just a class difference. Particularly like last year, you see the Thunder, the number 1 seed, they're just far more skilled, more talented, better group chemistry. They just don't let down. But in the middle ground games, in the 3-6, the 4-5, absolutely. And there's a certain amount of pride element too, where I think kind of a deceiving point in terms of handicapping, where people will see a team go up 3-0 and think, okay, the other team is totally uncompetitive, particularly if they lost game 3 where they had to win, because no team has ever come back from 3-0 in NBA history. So you lose game 3, people think, oh, they're out the door. And then they come back and win game 4. People get fooled by that. And that's just professionalism. That's just the idea that, they to tell their grandkids about it. They just don't want to have gotten swept in the playoffs. So that's another just dynamic which we will see develop in the coming weeks.
How about as far as lines, big lines versus short lines? Is there anything that you've kind of learned over time here that are there warnings? Is there such a thing as too many points? Like OKC probably comes in here. What do you suspect? They're laying 15 points regardless of who their opponent is. And is there anything that you've noticed or any corollaries to huge points, whether they be totals, the games go under and that favorite dominates, or do you think that we see some surprises in those big chalky lines?
In terms of this, I think you really gain an edge by looking at teams that have been in the playoffs for a couple of years now. You can't really cross it with anything in the regular season. This is such a unique dynamic. Like, we'll talk about this in terms of the totals in a few minutes, but just how the games go under in the playoffs, like, you hate to say automatically, but it's just a totally different ball game in terms of pace and defensive intensity and officiating. So you really have to look at how teams function under that particular specific environment. To talk about OKC, for example, this is just a team that is just going to demolish teams. They do not let down in the first game. Like last year in the first round, they beat Memphis by 51 points. 51 points. And this year, they're going to hammer Portland. They've been waiting around all year for this series. So, within that, you have to just, analyze the teams. But then there's other teams like the Knicks who are incredibly susceptible to losing home games that they're not supposed to lose. Like, go back to the last time the Knicks were in the playoffs. It was the conference finals last year. They lost game 1 and game 2 at home. I mean, we're just sitting here talking about how great that game 2 spot is off a home loss in game 1. The Knicks lost game 2 as well. So the Knicks are not a team you want to back. Like tomorrow, the Knicks are playing at 6:00 at the Garden. I don't want to back the Knicks tomorrow. I mean, Mike, did you look at it?
It's funny you say that because I said this of the Sharp Respected Betting Report there. We get this report that comes out and talks about respected bettors and house bettors from the various books in Vegas. And the number one spot that they've been buying since, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. Matter of fact, I'll look right now. It goes back the 14th, the 15th. I guess the 15th is the first time that they started. The 14th they were publishing. So a couple days now, 3 days, game hasn't even started. It's not until tomorrow. It's the Atlanta Hawks. That is the number one spot that these house bettors in Vegas are coming in and cleaning up on here. They're firing away. They like their 5. We see some 5.5s out there in the series, but maybe that speaks a little bit to your point about variance there. And the Knicks are just untested. Now 30-10 on the home front, but the Garden's a different element there. I almost wonder if that's a counterproductive situation where you expect like a team like the Cavaliers. They're 27-14. They're playing basically a 500 Raptors team, right? But all right, so you're going to Cleveland, right? Does anybody really care? No disrespect to Cleveland and Cleveland and the land, the fans from the land here. But when you're going to the Garden, man, if you're a Hawks team, you got some young bucks going into the Garden in the playoffs. I mean, that's a historical battlefront there. And talk about being in the arena. Like, it almost works against you if you're a Knicks guy, because those guys are coming in pumped up, even though they're your home fans. You think there's any credence to that?
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at the Knicks last year, as we said, they went 3 rounds. The second series, they actually played 2 road games to start at Boston. So their first home game was a Saturday, game 3. But they got blown out in their first home game in that series, 115-93. As I mentioned, in the conference finals, they lost games 1 and 2 at home. So in these big early home games in the series, they're not performing particularly well. And, going along the lines of feeling out, it's kind of counterintuitive because you would say to yourself, is a team really going to come into game 1 in New York City and lose because they're, quote, feeling it out? I would say, yeah, actually, like, having watched this closely for over a decade, these guys are heady and they don't look at the series as fans do. Like, fans look at every game almost in the emotional window of their own lives for the fans. Like, the fans are tuning in. They need to win because this better please me, the fan. That's not what the players are worried about. They're worried about taking care of business over 7. And oftentimes they know, listen, we're not going to sweep the Hawks. So we don't need to bring game 7 energy in game 1 because we don't want to burn out and then eventually lose in game 6 on the road because we overexerted early in the series. So you have to keep that in mind. These are professional athletes. It's the most competitive league in the world. Like, they don't, in their mind, they're not like so centered on game 1 here.
Let me ask you this. It's a great point. And I see that all the time where it's like, boy, how could this team be so, a team that feels like we see this from frequently, the Celtics. They're good. They're dominant. They should go out there and throttle everybody all the time. But then you see all of a sudden they throw up a stinker and they lose by a 20 spot, only to come back and beat the team again, the next day or 2 days later by 25. And it's like, what the hell just happened? But it's almost like they are playing themselves out there. They're playing the string as opposed to trying to go out there and fight every game like it's game 7. I think that's a really insightful point. How about credence to validity to, you have to be there before you can get there, if that makes sense. So like a team like the Pistons, right? A lot of people say the Pistons, Cade, we know if he's back, and he's back, but I mean, is he back? Truly healthy, not concerned about re-aggravating injuries. And is there any validity to this team has to go out there OKC Thunder style before they can go back and actually have a shot to be a national champion? Like the Pistons having not been there with the youth in their organization in the number 1 seed. I know some people have just written them off saying there's no way they'll be a valid contender here. But I actually think we see the Pistons do some battle here. And I think talent overachieves maybe the experience. But what kind of validity do you give to experience versus a young team that's hungry with a good makeup? Like Wemby's another good example of that. You think the Spurs and the Pistons can make some noise in these playoffs?
Noise, yes, but not deep. I don't think either makes it to the finals. Okay. And I think the Celtics will come out of the East. I said this actually going back about a month. I mean, first of all, what you saw from the Celtics this year was beyond impressive. This was supposed to be like a gap year for this group.
Yeah.
And they were literally the 2 or the 3 seed without Tatum. And it speaks to Joe Mazzulla being a great NBA coach. I mean, I've said this for a couple of years. I thought Ime Udoka was like coach 1A, like just so elite. I've gradually shifted my narrative here a little bit to Mazzulla being coach 1A and Udoka being maybe a little bit lackluster, like seeing what he's doing with Houston. Some of these losses they put on the record in the last 2 months. I'm unimpressed by Houston. So I think Mazzulla is a great coach. I think the group in Boston is just so well crafted. I mean, you talk about Brad Stevens maybe being a mediocre NBA coach on the sidelines. He's a great GM. He has brought in like just absolute top level professionals 1 through 15 on that roster. Now you get Tatum back. And Mike, you talk about like a blessing in disguise here. How amazing is that to get Tatum back with like a month of regular season burn? It's basically like they just kept him out. And now he's so fresh for the playoffs. Like they couldn't have scripted this anymore. And like final point on this, we'll keep talking about it, but they're such a dark horse now. Like it's such a unique psychological edge they have where they have no expectation. So these are the champions from 2 years ago who get a rested superstar, a group that grew within themselves all year without Tatum, a coach that's A-list, and they have absolutely no expectation, so they can play totally freely. I mean, I didn't even think about this until we started talking about it, but in my lifetime, I can't think of a team that had won a championship in the previous 48 months that basically entered the playoffs like with very little pressure to succeed and kind of just free rolling.
In terms of the last time they won the championship, you bring up a really great point about that there. It's kind of, and then you're right. This year, everyone said they don't have the size. They're not relevant. They're not valid contenders this year. And then, they go out at the deadline, they make some moves. They deal with the Vuce factor out there. I mean, I'm a big Vucevic fan. Anthony comes in here. I mean, this guy's made some moves to shore up, and you're right. They bring back a key player, not just a key player, but one of the best players in the NBA. Get him conditioned so he's up to game speed. You don't have to dick around with his minutes and minute restrictions or worry about that re-aggravation. You just go out there and ball, and you put your best foot forward. So it sounds like my Sixers don't have much of a chance here, despite the play-in. I don't know if you know this offhand, and I guess I should, but have we seen any play-in teams like make a Cinderella run like we kind of do sometimes with March Madness?
Not really, no. I don't think so. I mean, I'm trying to recall off the top of my head because the Miami Heat have been a staple in the play-in for like 4 or 5 years now, but I'm pretty sure the year that the Heat actually made the finals when they lost to the Nuggets, they were not in the play-in that year. So I think play-in just kind of like kind of makes you that much worse in terms of the NBA playoff picture. But just want to continue on the Boston conversation for a second here. Not only all those dynamics, but you also have another great edge here for Boston, the revenge angle on the Knicks from last year in the playoffs. And not only that, but if you look at that series, the Knicks won games 1 and 2 on the road, but the Knicks won game 1 in overtime. Great for the Knicks, but it was very tight. Again, coin flip idea here. And then in game 2, the Knicks were down significantly and came back in the game and won 91-90. And then they got blown out at home in game 3 by almost 30 points before Tatum got hurt. So if you really analyze that, the Knicks finished the series with Tatum hurt. So that has nothing to do with what we're going to see this playoffs. And they won 2 coin flip games in Boston and got blown out in the other one. So you get Boston with a revenge angle, peak motivation, totally fresh. And, you know, just on the Pistons point, the Pistons are kind of where the Thunder were 2 years ago. 2 years ago, the Thunder skyrocketed from being absolutely terrible to the 1 seed. It was their first run in the playoffs. They won the first round in 4 against New Orleans. Not, I wouldn't say super comfortably either. A couple tight games there in the first round. And then they ended up losing in the conference semifinals to Dallas, who went to the finals and lost to Boston. But that's where Detroit is. Detroit's going to win in the first round, and they'll probably end up losing in the second round.
So I fired off a future bet on the Lakers here. I was telling everybody about this, plus 650 to win the series against the Rockets. I'm hearing you talk a little bit about the Rockets, maybe not necessarily having some of that coaching and they get up and go behind them here. You do any future like series betting wise, especially come postseason? I've always found it to be an interesting way to consider playing out the string and then trying to figure out if you maybe hedge throughout the series itself. And if so, are there any that you really like here to advance?
First round is going to be tough. The pricing is incredibly inflated. And what you're seeing here is kind of like, you know, we talk about in other sports where when you see like a minus 500, they're not really supposed to lose ever. And so you're not really getting value on the underdog. It's one of those classic like CLV ideas like, wow, I got a great price, but it has no chance of cashing. That's kind of what you're seeing with a bunch of these series. Like, I mean, the Rockets are laying 575 to the Lakers, which is egregious. But, you know, the books aren't giving away free money. They're not saying, hey, you know, bet $1,000 on the Lakers. Here's $4,000 in return. Just take it from us. You know, like they're telling you there's going to be a significant gap in this series. You know, you're looking at the Celtics laying 900. It's like that's a blowout waiting to happen. The Spurs are minus 2,000. A couple of the other series were waiting to go. And then, so you say to yourself, all right, I'll bet, you know, a spread. I'll bet the series spread. It's still really juiced and like price inflated on both sides where you're kind of priced out of the market. Like, for example, you know, the Cavs series to win by 1.5 games is minus 210. And that's probably what's going to happen. They're probably going to win 4-2. So basically you either risk 550 to win the money line, or you're risking 210 to win minus 1.5. That's not a good marketplace.
Yeah, I get down with that. I was thinking about that. I know at different speed here when it comes to hockey, but a couple spots like the Kings and the Avalanche there, where it's like Avalanche are such a big favorite to win the Stanley Cup. And yet at the same time, it's like, well, the Kings aren't no slouches, man. I mean, they play some competitive hockey and they've played the big boys in the past. They dealt with the, you know, Edmonton Oilers time and again. Granted, they keep losing to them, but they've played some big bears out there. And so you, instead of taking that favor or that chalk and saying they're going to go out there and sweep, I try to look for get an opportunity to add a couple games to the stats and pad them up there. So as far as totals, any validity to the NBA and the unders and the playoffs? Like I remember I was talking about this where I know somebody that was trying to do an experiment a couple of years ago where he was betting every player prop under. And it was like, man, you got a lot of cash laid out there. Are you really getting the return on it? And is it true? Do they really tighten up and play more defense when it comes postseason in the unders?
Yeah, absolutely. Even if you watch the games the last couple nights, it was like a different product out there. I mean, outside of Steph Curry going nuclear in a ridiculous game that reached almost 250 points, but the other games have been like really noticeable in terms of the defensive intensity. I mean, I think most notably the game in Philadelphia between the Magic and the Sixers the other night. Mm-hmm. Felt like a 90s playoff game. first of all, the score was incredibly low at final, but you could just see that. I mean, I think I was more blown away by the Sixers because I hadn't seen guys like Maxey and these guys break it down like they're, playing for Chuck Daly and the Pistons in the late 80s. Like, I've never seen that dude compete like that on defense. I was kind of blown away. And that it's also such an interesting snapshot to just how much these guys coast on defense in the regular season. Like, when you really zoom way out, there's no other sport that is so different in the regular season.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we used to hear the adage that the NBA doesn't really start till Christmas, and like you got 2 months of games that just are jerk off games at that point. Is that what you're essentially proposing to us? And now the play-in, that what do they call it? The NBA Cup there in Vegas. I like that idea. I mean, some hokiness to it, some theatrics with the different courts or whatever. But hey, I always liked when Coastal Carolina or Boise played because their football fields had those different colors behind them. So I was always down with that. But nonetheless, here, totals wise, let me ask you this here. Let's talk. I said, you know what, we don't have to get into the weeds too much with these games that are coming up because we still got to see, yes, lineups, and yes, like you said, game one's incredibly difficult. But I've got four, five total. Let me go back here. One of them already played. I've got 4 totals. Tell me if you would just pass or play segment, rapid fire here. This is from the Sharp Respected Betting Report. We're just looking to see if you would agree or disagree or no opinion. First one, they like the over in the Atlanta and Knicks game. They got 216.5 was a Sharp Respected action spot there from, I think that one was out of BetMGM.
Yeah, truthfully, I think the unders are pretty much in play in every game.
Okay.
But if I had to pick one that I could see actually going higher, it would be that one. The Knicks last year in round 1 against Detroit, they hosted Detroit. The first game was projected to be an under as well, and it went way over, 125 to 113. Before game 2 went way under, 194. So that's also a point in terms of the zigzag. If game 1 does go over, I would expect a massive adjustment going into game 2, which would be Monday night at Madison Square Garden and probably an under there. I don't like the over in any game, though, so I wouldn't condone the over, but I do think of all the games, that one has the highest chance to maybe explode.
They got the under in the Denver-Minnesota game. It sounds like you would concur. I'm with you. I like the unders as a general rule of thumb when it comes to these NBA playoff games because, again, every shot matters. Every possession matters. And I think you see a lot of these games go tick, 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 and the clock gets drained down there. But concur, Denver, Minnesota, maybe looks like a good under spot.
Yeah, and this is a good spot because you have matchup data from last year, or 2 years ago, excuse me. These teams played in the playoffs, and the games were all like just snail's pace games. Like I'm just looking at it right now: 106-99, 106-80, 117-90, 112-97, 115-70, 98-90. I mean, not to say there's ever a lock in sports betting, but I think this is going to be a snail's pace game.
And then the last one they've got is the Houston and Lakers game, and they got this thing under. I had to double check the number. I couldn't believe it. They were showing 207.5, so we're still buy spots for these guys. Is that a holy shit? I mean, we're seeing all this cash, 96% of the bets, 99% of the cash coming in on the over at 207.5. It's actually still juiced to the under. Does that make sense to you?
I like the under. Yeah, I have a projection. I have the final score to finish at 192 points.
Wow. There you have it, you guys. Some spots to consider. We got a couple games tonight. Before we do, I wanted to share some breaking news. I know I promised we wouldn't talk about baseball today, but Shark, current conditions in Colorado. That white stuff
snowing?
Is fucking snow. 35 degrees and snowy. Dodgers and Colorado Rockies. Holy cow. Dude, I like that plus 2.5. Anyhow, let's go, you guys. AB says, I know this is an under type of atmosphere, win or go home. But he's taking the over tonight in the Magic and Hornets. I see a ton of stop time and free throws for both of these teams. I think that's a really good way to segue and transition in here. We got 2 games tonight, you guys. A couple thoughts. First and foremost here, Shark, I bring the trends, man, or at least I try to. Favorites in game 2 of the play-ins are 9-1 against the spread overall. Generally speaking, they're seeing about that 3.5. It's actually 3.4 is the line that they're laying. And they find that they're covering, not just winning, but covering the spread by 8.5 points. So 4 and 6 to the total on the under, slight lean to the under, but it appears there's domination, and we've got both teams right in that wheelhouse. Hornets minus 3.5, Suns minus 3.5. I know these are tough with the play-in. Is there any consideration that you have for the NBA in some spots tonight?
Yeah, in terms of the games tonight, just based on the way I model numbers, I have Charlotte to win the game by 5 points. Very sharp line. Mike, before the show, I said 3 or 4. I just looked here. I have 5. So
okay.
Very sharp. And I mean, you saw the first game. One thing about the Orlando side tonight, you hate to necessarily say that somehow the regular season has anything to do with tonight, but if you look at the last 2 times the Orlando Magic played professional basketball, they closed the regular season and lost at Boston to the worst roster group that Boston put on the court all year. And we're sitting here touting up Boston. Like, we love that for Boston in terms of our projection, but Orlando had absolutely no business losing that game. And that was not a game 82 where they were just mailing it in, trying to rest. They could have actually avoided the play-in tournament if they had beaten Boston without Tatum, Brown, even Pritchard was out. I mean, like, everybody was out. So is Orlando just extremely disrupted? And then you saw the game at Philadelphia. They didn't score 100 points. I mean, they looked totally, I would say, confused down the stretch. And I think one issue here is that Franz Wagner didn't play for a few months.
Yeah.
So now you get in this playoff environment with intensified defense and slower pace, much more half court. They don't know who's going to take the final shot. Like, remember when LeBron joined the Miami Heat? And for like a month, it was Wade and LeBron, and looking at each other, they didn't know who was the guy to take over. I think you're kind of seeing that. I think maybe Franz Wagner didn't have enough time on the court to reintegrate with this group. And of course, that's a group that includes Desmond Bane, who has never played with them in any like super high consequence games in the playoffs either. So I think that's part of the problem. I think this Orlando team has just not enough on-court time together in these big moments.
I got another spot for you guys here from a trend perspective. The trends are our friends until the end. And the Warriors balled out. You talked about one, Chef Curry, 126 points in their first NBA play-in win. However, they scored 120 points or more their previous game. They're 0-10 against the number. That goes back this year. So that's a stat here for this past 12 months here. 1-9 straight up. 0-10 against the spread. However, that being said, generally the line that they're catching is a pick'em. So truly a minus 110 money line out there. Boy, oh boy, Shark. Are you looking forward to that game? You looking forward to watching Golden State and the Phoenix Suns, one of the best cover teams in the NBA? Think they go out there and fire?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a great game tonight. I mean, talk about 10 o'clock Friday night. I mean, this is one of those games you just crack a beer, get a glass of wine, maybe a glass of water, whatever you guys want to drink, 7-Up, I don't know. But you get something. You sit on your couch and you say, you know what? Who cares who wins this game? I get to watch Stephen Curry play basketball in a meaningful game. 10 years from now, you're going to wish you had this moment back. So outside of the actual handicap, enjoy the fact you get to watch Steph Curry at work. There's only a few more years of this. And you saw him in the first matchup. I mean, he was vintage Steph. The guy is just an absolutely elite professional athlete. He's a Hall of Famer. He changed the game. I respect him. I think he's just an incredible player. That all being said, my projection in that game is the Warriors to cover the spread and win the game. So if you guys want to bet it, take Golden State in that game. The market agrees it's getting steamed down, I see.
Yeah.
Like 2.5. And I think what you're seeing there is a combination of Curry, Kerr, Draymond, just maybe having an extra level in them to make that push. I mean, this is a team that's won 4 NBA championships. Like, they have that pedigree. The Suns do not. I mean, I'm sorry, they just don't. Jalen Green is very young, inexperienced. Devin Booker has lost in the finals. Jordan Ott is a very young coach, very little experience. I mean, if you talk about experience in the playoffs, you talk about coaching. If Jordan Ott was up to the task, he should have beaten Tiago Splitter and the Portland Trailblazers in the first game. Now you get Kerr and Curry coming in here. I think the Warriors win the game.
I like that, dude. I feel I heard something that was very interesting to me not too long ago. They said, they bring these play-in games in now because you get these aging stars like the Lakers with LeBron and Golden State with Steph Curry. And while they don't necessarily have the track shoes to run with the young boys out there, it's still their league. And they got these play-in games because they want to give an opportunity to get a little bit more postseason camera time. And I thought, well, that's pretty interesting. And then we see Golden State goes out there and doesn't last the other game out there. We see the Lakers are back in this thing. I mean, shit, since the, I don't want to call it Babygate there, but Luka and the Lakers, dude, they went absolutely fucking crazy after they took his dog and his kids away from him. They couldn't lose. And I think he's got that little hammy, if I'm not mistaken, but apparently he's got some European hydrotherapy. It might be Madeline Klein. I'm not sure, but the Lakers, look out, man. I like that plus 650 spot here. You guys got the deal. Here's what's up. You heard some plays, you heard some trends, you heard some sides, you heard some totals, you heard some strategy. That's, to me, is the most important part. Whether you talk about the outcome, boys. We all know this. We've been doing this a long time. You guys in the chat specifically, win or lose, we want to come back and fire the next day, but we have to have a process that we want to go continue to fire away on. So outcome is what it is, but it's the process. And can we improve that process? And my guy Shark's got one of the best in the business. So I think, if I'm not mistaken, he got a special treat for you guys. You asked for it. I think he's got it for you.
Yeah, I'm going to give you guys one free play tomorrow. I'm wearing a shirt. You guys should take notice of that. The buy hat is engaged. Take the Cavs at -8. First game of the playoffs. We're not betting tonight officially, although I do think, as I said, I think the Warriors do win the game, and I think Charlotte wins. But this is an official play. Take Cleveland at -8. Great spot here. Really noteworthy stuff, too, actually. The Cavs have lost all 3 games to the Raptors this year, and now they're favored by 8 points. Your eyes should light up. Why is that? This is the playoffs. The game is going to be played completely differently. Not only that, these teams haven't played since the fall. The 3 games this year between these teams were played on October 31st, Halloween night in Cleveland, November 13th, and November 24th. And the last 2 times the Raptors beat the Cavs were on the second night of a back-to-back 3rd and 4 ultra fatigue spot. And for any of those of you guys who tailed my plays, either in VIP and maybe some free plays along the way in the fall, we did bet Toronto to beat Cleveland 2 out of the 3 times and got it right both times. So now we're flipping the script. And we've seen this year after year in the playoffs. The regular season, a team dominates, and all of a sudden they're a significant underdog. It's just a competitive gap. It's a complete separation. And what you're going to see here is you're going to see Atkinson, Mitchell, Harden, and these guys just lay the hammer down at 1 o'clock. Last year, first round, as the final point on this, a lot of people were kind of wary, a little apprehensive about laying about 8 points with the Cavs in round 1, also on a Saturday. They came out, took care of business, beat Orlando by 14 points. The game was way under, and it was just a logjam defensive special. The buy hat is engaged. Take the Cavs at -8 in game 1, and let's cash.
There you guys have it from the man, the myth, the legend here. I love so much doing bases loaded. We got the NFL, the betting blitz in the fall, you guys. But you can certainly show some support. We'll run the promo. We'll get him back in here to tell him where you can find him. And we'll put the bow on the show, boys. Hey, it's Mikey Money here, letting you know the Sports Money team is live on Winnable. Come check out our best bets.
For a low monthly cost, you get the very best bets delivered instantly to your phone by text the moment they're locked in. No delays, no missed lines, just the smartest plays at the best odds.
We do the work, you get the plays, and they're sent right to your phone right when we drop them.
Don't wait, don't guess, don't miss the line. Join the winning team today and start cashing tickets with Winnable.
Shout out again to Mike Kendall over there, the legendary ring announcer from the LFA, dropping in to give us a little voiceover work, Shark. Man, I know you're doing this thing. You're doing it on the reel. You blessed us with your time here today. I already ran over the time I promised you, and I apologize for that, but I just get jacked up talking sports with you, and I know you got a super premium access site out there and a low cost like the rest of us. So why don't you give it a plug? Tell them where they can find you. and we'll wrap this thing up.
Yeah, if you guys haven't followed me on X, please do. It's Sharks and Sports 88. And going to be giving out a ton of free plays this summer, and we'll have VIP packages back in the fall. So, Mike, we'll be talking business like that in the fall, and it'll be football season. But you know what the best thing is? It's Friday night. We get to watch NBA basketball. We get to bet baseball. It's gorgeous outside. We appreciate you guys in the chat, Mike. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure doing business every day, and these shows are just so much fun to do. So thanks for having me, and I'll see you either tomorrow night or on Monday.
Respect, everybody. Enjoy your Friday nights. On behalf of the Sports Money Squad, on behalf of the Shark, on behalf of Bases Loaded and Pregaming, hopefully you guys